Good evening, everybody. It's actually a privilege to be here. This is why we do this. Very rarely do we have more than 2 or 3 people from the community here. So I know you're all here to talk about the International Puppy Awareness Day. We will get to that after all of our other matters, but we will call to order the Planning Commission meeting for today, Monday, October 13th, 2025. We'll start with a roll call and we'll go from there.
Commissioner Fernandez Madrid,
Present.
Commissioner Nordstrom,
Present.
Commissioner Chavez,
Present.
Commissioner Rake,
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes, present, Chair Stewart,
I am present.
all in attendance, ready to go.
Thank you. The first thing that we do is we go over our prior meeting minutes and make sure that the community or any members of the commission that have any modifications can let us know. That's again, part of our open meetings rules and approaches. This can be found in the preliminary pages of this evening's meeting packet. Do any of the commissioners have any modifications that you would seek to implement for the September 8, 2025 meeting minutes? Hearing none, seeing none. Anybody in the community have a problem with the meeting minutes from our last meeting? Without any, we will accept a motion to approve in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second to approve the meeting notes from September 8th.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, please just confirm with an aye.
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 Matter passes unanimously. Before we move on to our agenda items, we are going to invite anybody from the community who has any comments that you would like to share that does not have to do with an agenda item this evening. I presume most people would like to talk about the conditional use permit and the associated items that are before us for hearing tonight. But if anybody else has any thoughts or comments you'd like to share on any other items, now would be the time. I see one, sir. You're welcome to come to the lectern here. Good evening, sir.
Hi, John Dorner. I live down on Medoffery Road, and I'd just like everybody to speak up. I'm sorry, but I can't hear a word you're saying, hardly, barely.
Sure.
And that holds for everyone that's spoken so far, because I'm really trying to follow what's going on.
Understood.
So thank you.
Is it a little bit better if I'm closer to the microphone?
Yeah,
Does that help? Excellent.
definitely,
I'll
definitely.
Bring out the Shakespearean voice if
right.
necessary. Much appreciated. Gives us a chance again to communicate properly. Having no other public comments, we will proceed to our first action item this evening, which is a site design review, file 2025-01, along with a conditional use permit 2025-01 and a floodplain development. Our applicant is JIPR LLC, and the location is just down the street here at 714, I believe, 714 East Main Street. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I will now open the hearing. Pardon me, I have a statutory framework that we're going to read here. We will now start the public hearing for the East Main Street Fuel Station and Convenience Store, City Case Files CUP 2025-01, SDR 2025-01, and FD 2025-01. Before we start the hearing, state law requires that a statement be read into the record, and this statement is found in Oregon Revised Statute, specifically ORS 197.797. At the commencement of a hearing, a statement shall be made to those in attendance that lists the applicable substantive criteria. For 3 case files mentioned here today, the applicable substantive criteria are found in the City of Carlton Development Code. Specifically, for the conditional use permit application, criteria are found in section 17.152.030. For the site design review application, the criteria are found in section 17.156.060. And for the floodplain development permit application standards and criteria, they are found in section 17.56. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards these criteria or other criteria in the Carlton Comprehensive Plan or Carlton Development Code, which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeal based on that issue. Also, before the conclusion of the hearing, any participant may ask the commission for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing under ORS 197.797 subsection 6. On this topic, I must confirm that I've received a request to leave the record open for a period of 7 days submitted as part of the written testimony. Accordingly, we will be conducting the hearing this evening, but we will also honor the request to leave the record open for an additional 7 days. Prior to conducting any hearing such as this, commissioners are also required to declare any bias, conflicts of interest, or ex parte contacts with either the applicant or the public regarding this hearing item. I have no ex parte contacts. I have reviewed from time to time communications on the Facebook I love griping about and or living in the city of Carlton, as I think many of us have. Do any other commissioners have any conflict of interest, bias, or abstentions to present this evening? I do.
I just want to declare that in June of last year, when this was a rumor and I was concerned about the city bearing the cost of a potential pedestrian bridge, I did go to the city of Yamhill to request from them what they did in a similar situation. I shared that information with city engineer Gordon Monroe, took pictures of the site, and basically got my answer at the counter, and they said no, that the developer was requested to bear the cost of that pedestrian bridge, and that was a year ago in June.
Just to bring that.
I just wanted to declare that in June of last year, when this was a rumor, I wanted to, out of concern for the city having to pay for a potential pedestrian bridge to this site, I did go to the city of Yamhill. I talked to their front desk and city planner briefly and asked them what had happened in a similar situation to a creek that's just west of their town. They assured me that the developer bore the cost of that. I informed city engineer Gordon Monroe of my intent to do so. I took pictures of the bridge and I shared them with the city engineer.
Do you believe that any of those contacts would put you in a position where you could not provide an impartial determination this evening?
No, in fact, it was good to have that information, and it looks like it would be a similar situation here, that the developer would bear that cost.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chavez?
No, I don't have any.
Commissioner Rake?
I do. I'm a business owner in downtown, so that's a possible conflict of interest. I also have a bias. I don't think this has any right being built where it is. And I had ex parte contact with folks in the community prior to this. So,
Okay. And for that reason, will you be abstaining from participation this evening?
yeah, I believe I need to.
Understood. Thank you, sir. That's why we do this. Commissioner Nordstrom?
I have a view of the property from, under discussion from my backyard. I have walked down to kind of look at the floodplain area and to see what the tree and the floodplain and the building site looks like. Partly as, you know, it would be sort of parallel with my backyard, even though I cannot, with the trees, I cannot see it. I don't know that that in itself is specifically a conflict of interest. It may,
Ex parte contact.
yeah, so ex parte contact. I have certainly, knowing that this was maybe coming to the council, I have tried not to engage in any conversations with people, but I have certainly listened to people in the community when they have had conversations, but I have not put my own opinion or spin or anything on that.
Would the experience that you've had preclude you from deciding and making an impartial decision here this evening?
I don't think so. I will say I have read everything very carefully, and you know, there's a lot of information, and I do think I'm trying to weigh it very thoughtfully and carefully.
Understood. When you say you don't think so, can I accept that as a yes, you will be impartial?
Yes, I will be impartial.
Thank you for the clarification. Commissioner Rhodes?
I have not partaked in any discussion related to this topic. The most I know is what is currently in the agenda packet, so I believe that I can have an unbiased vote on this decision.
Understood. Thank you, Commissioner Rhodes. That means we will have 5 of 6, which is more than sufficient for proceeding for this evening's hearing.
Does that mean I need to?
To my understanding, pursuant to our rules, our abstaining commissioner can remain present, but he doesn't have to, won't be voting. All right, now is the time where we turn it to the community. You all have the opportunity to challenge the right for any commissioner to be here this evening to participate in this hearing. Now is the time to bring that up. Otherwise, my understanding is that sort of an objection would be waived. Hearing none and seeing none, and I trust we have none in Zoom land who are piping up to tell us to go home. So we will move forward. The order of the proceedings tonight will be as follows. First, we will hear from the city staff. Next, we will receive oral testimony from the applicant or the applicant's representative. Thereafter, we will invite oral testimony. As there are several people attending tonight with interested in presenting testimony, we will be receiving and retaining all testimony up to 3 minutes per individual. After oral testimony, the applicant will be provided with an opportunity for rebuttal. And after the applicant's rebuttal, the chair will close the hearing and the commission will deliberate. What I will tell you is that there may or may not be some repetition in comments, but we welcome everybody's participation here this evening. Because it is a community, we want to provide a reasonable and open time period for these communications. But if you find that you are agreeing with somebody giving a comment that has already given one tonight, we still welcome you to come to the lectern to provide your name and address as is required for anybody providing oral testimony. And thereafter, simply reaffirming and saying, I believe with Ms. Frugier or any other individual that you identify. We appreciate that. Helps keep it short and provide all the individuals who have an original or a more unique perspective on the situation to have their points heard tonight before many of the community members have to go home and either put their kids to bed or go to sleep themselves. So with that, we will now formally open the public hearing for the CUP 2025-01, SDR 2025-01, and FD 2025-01 at 6:12 p.m. I will call on Mr. White, the city's planner, to present the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Scott White. I'm the contract city planner for the city of Carlton. I work for Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I would also like to introduce a person who hasn't attended here before, Laura Conroy. She is to my left over here. And Laura is spotting Tyler Yeoman-Millette. Tyler is normally the city attorney for the city of Carlton, and Laura works for the same office as I do, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. We are in contract with the city for general services. That includes city attorney services. And so Laura is very familiar with the land use process. She'll be addressing the commission on a portion of the staff presentation tonight. Also to my left is Gordon Monroe. Gordon is the contract city engineer. Gordon has also been a part of the review team involved in reviewing the applicant's proposed development. What we'd like to do right now, we have a PowerPoint presentation. We'll want to go over briefly here what the applicant proposes, and then also address the approval criteria. So if we can get the PowerPoint presentation. Just the first slide here, we have 3 concurrent applications, at least concurrent for the hearing tonight. We have the conditional use application, that's the CUP. We have the site design review application, and that's the SDR application there, and then the floodplain development application. Next slide, please. This is a aerial photograph of the subject property. It's tax lot 1600 there. And this is from page 6 of the staff report. Most all of what I have tonight is extracted from the staff report that you have dated a week ago. The tax lot boundaries there are not very accurate, but do show the configuration of the current parcel there. Not really shown well in the aerial photograph is Hahn Creek that runs through the site there, mostly to the western portion of the site. We have some residential areas there to the north, across on the north side of Main Street. And to the south, we have Carlo and Julian Winery. And then to the west, we have a property owned by the city along Main Street there. That's a lift, a sanitary sewer lift station. And then we also have residential properties also there to the west. If we can get the next slide. So the subject property there, it's in that sort of pinkish color there. That is a commercial property zone, commercial business CB zone. And we have different zones to surrounding the subject property there. We have to the south, we have the agricultural holding district. That's what's shown in green there. And then to the north, we have the low-density residential R1 zone on the north side of Main Street. And to the west, we have a slightly higher zoning district. It's the R2, or the medium density residential zone. Next slide, please. This is also from the staff report, page 5. In addition to the zones, we have a floodplain overlay. So this is extracted from the Federal Emergency Management website there, and from their rate maps that they have. One thing to point out here, along Hahn Creek, we have the A zone, which is the approximate zone, or what is known as unknown base flood elevation. And because of that, we inform applicants of the need to study where the base flood zone is located, and we have that as part of the record, and we'll go over that later. But that is the federal map for that site. Next slide, please. So one of the important things we want to make sure is made clear for the record, we certainly have it stated in the staff report and the findings there, pages 6 through 7. We have a list of permitted uses and conditional uses in the commercial business zone. And retail sales is a permitted outright use. And we have a list of conditional uses under that is automobile service station, including towing services and vehicle washing and polishing, as that use description states. And so that's why we have the conditional use application as part of this proposal. The use is allowed by the zone. It is allowed as a conditional use, which means we look at how the use impacts abutting properties and what conditions we can look at that may mitigate the impacts. Next slide, please. I'm going to switch right now. I'm going to switch it over to Laura Conroy, acting city attorney for this evening. It's important that we understand the proceedings tonight. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and Laura will talk about the significance of that.
Push that button. Screen.
Good evening. Public bodies can sit in quasi-judicial or legislative postures. A legislative posture means that they can make law. An example would be the types of zoning in certain places in the city. Tonight, the Planning Commission is not sitting in a legislative posture. That means they cannot create a different type of zoning for this property. They are sitting in a quasi-judicial posture. What this means is that they must look at the zoning that is, not the zoning that perhaps others may or they may want it to be. And they must apply that zoning to the application that has been made. I will offer that I was a bit surprised to see a bright pink dot in the middle of a green field. However, this is not the setting in which this body can change the color of that dot. And that's important to understand for the body. Once the zoning is adopted and the application is made, the body is in a quasi-judicial process, and it must apply the existing zoning criteria to the application. In this case, the zoning criteria is as Mr. White has described. In order to deny, the commission would need to find evidence of a substantial impact that has not already been addressed. And Mr. White will, I think, go through some of that tonight about the various types of impacts that have been identified and how the application has addressed that. If the body doesn't find a substantial impact that hasn't already been addressed, I apologize for the double negatives there, then the applicant could appeal the denial to the Land Use Board of Appeals and would very likely succeed, in which case it would be sent right back to this body. I offer that just because this it's important to understand what posture this body is sitting in tonight. Thank you.
Next. To continue with the staff presentation here, we have the applicant's site plan, and the applicant will provide the commission with further detail about the proposal. But this is the applicant's site plan. It is, as the project summary describes there, a fuel station with 8 pumps and service positions there, all located under a canopy. There's also a 4,264 square foot single-story convenience store. That's just to the south of the fuel station. And most importantly, we have the fuel station located on the upland portion of the site, away from the delineated, if I could say it, delineated wetlands of the site, and also the floodplain has been determined on this property. I should mention too that the floodplain application is localized to the southern portion of the site there, where the applicant proposes outfall of their proposed storm treatment system. It's an area called riprap, but it's pretty much a rocked area. And what they're proposing there would be a cut-fill balance to ensure that the capacity of the floodplain remains the same. So that is the limit of the disturbance there to the floodplain, is just that rocked riprap area. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. There is a pedestrian bridge proposal, and one portion of the bridge is existing. This is the existing photo of the existing bridge. It is not Hahan Creek at this location there, but the applicant would move this bridge and then also connect it to another bridge. So we have 2 spans of bridge. We have a 65-foot span and a 40-foot span. The 40-foot would match in appearance to this this bridge. So that bridge would be located just south on the south side of Main Street there. Main Street does not have a sidewalk. And so that is the purpose of the pedestrian bridge addition. Next slide, please. So I want to just briefly mention that in the staff report, page 2, we have a listing of all of what the applicant has submitted as far as studies and reports and plans. And that it makes the commission's package very large in addition to all of the testimony that's been received. But we have quite a bit there. We have traffic analysis, wetland delineation report. And I'll mention DSL stands for the Department of State Lands, and they have confirmed they agree with the wetland determination as prepared by the applicant. There's also a floodplain memo and hydraulic analysis prepared by a consultant that normally does that sort of thing. And we agree with the base flood elevation determination as shown. Also geotechnical and stormwater report and some additional information there on A9 that the city engineer has asked of the applicant. Next slide, please. So this might be a little bit difficult to read, but we'll go through it. Just briefly, key application here is the conditional use application, and it's a 5-part criteria. And I'll just kind of go through these briefly. Next slide. First part of the criteria really speaks to the use. Is it listed as a conditional use in the underlying district? And the underlying district is the CB, or the commercial business zone, as I mentioned. And that's an easy one to answer, as we have automobiles service station specifically listed. We also have a definition in the code to what a service station is, and the applicant's proposal matches that. There is also an important thing to note here, that there isn't anything specific to the use, a restriction that I've seen in other city codes that kind of say, well, if you want this particular use, it has to be on a lot of a certain size, or it must be located on a corner of 2 intersecting, streets. So nothing of that sort, and that's very important to know. So we have the applicant's response to that as well. Next slide, please. B basically says the site size, dimensions, location, topography, access are adequate for the needs of the proposed use, considering the proposed building mass, parking, traffic, noise, vibration, exhaust emissions, light glare, erosion, odor, dust, visibility, safety, and aesthetic considerations. So there's quite a mouthful there. And we have the findings in the staff report that speak to, we can go back there. We have the findings that speak to that criteria and what happened there. But if we can go back to that slide. Keep going backwards. Yeah, one more. There we go. So a convenience store, the size requires 11 off-street parking spaces. That's a code standard. The applicant has 14 that's shown. There's no space requirement for a service station. Also, the applicant's traffic analysis and queuing analysis is important for addressing what B states with looking at the site for its circulation there and the number of vehicles that the site can accommodate, and ensuring that vehicles are not stacked into the street. So that's very important. Also, we have the proposed pedestrian bridge. The applicant acknowledges that there isn't a sidewalk, so we have that bridge to be constructed across Hahn Creek. We also have a lighting plan. The applicant will go into more detail with that, but it does show photometrics, how you can get the light down to 1-foot candle at the property line there. There's also quite a bit of detail shown how the light fixtures will be screened such that the light source should not be seen. Will be illumination of the site, but there are ways to diminish and mitigate the light associated with this project. And then we have retaining wall, storm drainage plan, a system that will detain and treat the site with respect to oil and other things. And all of that is also subject to permits that would be required by the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. Next slide, please. So we have also another criterion here speaks to required public facilities, including water, sanitary sewer, streets. This is something that Gordon Monroe, sitting next to me here, looked at very carefully. Sanitary sewer is fine. The line that currently serves the site is adequate. Water is also sufficient for a commercial development of this size. However, there's also the matter of fire flow that's necessary there at the 1,500 gallons per minute. And there is a line that is located just to the west in 7th Street, and that has been determined to be adequate for flow purposes. And we have a proposed condition that the applicant will have to execute, have to make that connection to 7th Street and extend the line. For streets, we have arterial class street, that is the classification of Main Street, and it is substandard, as we've acknowledged there. We have the applicant proposing what they can on the portion of the site that does not abut the bridge, where they'll be adding paving, curb, sidewalk. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the pedestrian bridge is the connection point there to the city property to the west. There are some proposed modifications we'll talk a little bit about, and we find these modifications to be negligible. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. This is the criterion here that speaks to the proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that substantially limits impacts. Okay. So I know this is one of the things that we have to make sure that we understand. The criterion does not say despite the use. It is still relevant that the use is allowed by the zone. And I call attention to substantially limits, impairs, or precludes, strong words there, the use of surrounding properties for the primary uses listed in the zoning underlying district. So that is, again, that is the use that is allowed by the zone. And one of the things we are recommending to the commission is that we look hard at the conditions that are available by code, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Next slide. So E is the final criterion here. This is one that says the negative impacts of the proposed use, if any, on adjacent properties and the public can be mitigated through application of other code standards and other reasonable conditions of approval. And this is where the commission has the ability to apply conditions of approval. And one of the things that we advise the commission to do in any case when we're applying conditions is to make sure those conditions are reasonable, that they are feasible, and that we have findings that show the applicant actually is causing a negative impact. This is very important in land use law, and as Laura mentioned, if the matter goes to appeal before the Land Use Board of Appeals, it's really a question of how did the city take a hard look at the conditions? Did you exhaust those before you said, no, the use is not going to work? So next slide, please. So I know it's kind of dark there, but these are the conditions. It's just an extraction of the code, a list of conditions of approval from A to K that's in the staff report that are Exhibit B3 of the staff report. And so the commission has the ability to review these and apply these. And so that is what we are encouraging the commission to do this evening. Next slide there. I think there's a second part of that. There's G through N. And staff has certainly proposed some conditions tonight, and the commission can add and modify. Next slide, please. So we also have another application. We have the major site design review application, and the approval criteria for this one is pretty short. There's just that one part there that speaks to how the proposal meets a lot of the design standards that we have for development of the site, not just building design, but also for site design like landscaping and things like that. So we have a large part of the applicant's narrative responding to the design standards, pages 25 to 80. We also have the applicant's plans too, that some of the plans just demonstrate compliance with it. For example, there's a 10% landscape requirement. The applicant's proposal easily meets that standard. There are some minor modifications that are requested, to which it's not necessary that the applicant go through a variance or a separate land use application for those modifications. They are evaluated through this particular application, major site design review application, and just kind of bulleted what those are. We have a minor modification to the street right-of-way and minimum distance between driveways. Not that you can't have two driveways, there's just a minimum distance standard because of the arterial class at 110 feet. And then we also have some modifications proposed to window glazing percentage, where the transparency, I think the standard is like 60 and the applicant is requesting 42%, and some minor changes to the CMU block where the standard says not to paint and the applicant wants to paint. So those are some minor proposed modifications. Next slide, please. And so, as we mentioned, there's a two driveway proposal, and the applicant will talk about this in greater detail. I did want to identify a condition of approval that Gordon Monroe, on my left here, has proposed, making an observation here that the wheel in this turn movement, this is for a fuel truck, fuel truck, and it would be coming to the site and making this way to get into and around there to make the deliveries. And we are proposing an additional 3 feet there, kind of in the that area that's circled in red, just because it's a little bit too close there to the edge. But that area would be inside the existing right-of-way. Next slide, please. The final application is the floodplain development application. And there's lots of standards in the floodplain development section of the Carlton Code. It is a model code. It mirrors that created by FEMA. And the applicant has the floodplain hydraulic analysis. They have denoted where the floodplain is located. They also, there's a section that speaks to if you disturb habitat in the floodplain, you have to mitigate. So there will be one tree that's 20 inches in diameter, and that would be removed. That would be removed in that one area that I showed in the earlier slide there, where the applicant is proposing the rock riprap. Next slide, please. So once again, we have the applicant's site plan here, and as mitigation for that removal, the applicant is proposing 5 big leaf maple trees within the the floodplain area there. Those trees would not be planted in that portion of the site that is the delineated wetland. That's the crosshatched area there is the delineated wetlands. So yeah, this is the applicant's landscape plan, and we have some notes there off to the right. Next slide, please. So pages 18 through 22, we have some proposed conditions should the Planning Commission choose to approve. And I'm not going to go through a lot of these here for the sake of time, but we do have some things that the applicant will have to do. And it is our job and duty here to make sure that they obtain them. We foresee that the applicant will likely need a permit from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality. They'll also need a right-of-way permit from Yamhill County. They have a grading permit through the city to which they'll need to provide greater detail of what's proposed on site. Next slide, please. So we also have proposed conditions here that would apply. These conditions apply at various stages, but the very last thing that the city can hold is the certificate of occupancy. And there's a number of things that we would need to check ahead of time. We have a number of conditions that speak to the landscaping to ensure that that's in place, that all of the exterior lighting is to what the plans show there, and we would do a site verification, and that the applicant has all necessary permits from DEQ. It's also necessary for the pedestrian bridge for the applicant to come in with a surveyor's certificate there, certificate of elevation, to ensure that the height of the bridge is at least 1 foot over the base flood elevation. Next slide, please. So last page of the staff report has proposed motions, and one is to move that the case files here be approved based on the findings and the conditions of the staff report. The applicant or the commission, sorry, has the option also to add, as I mentioned, additional conditions or modify the conditions that are proposed. And then we have a continuance of the hearing potential there. And then also a move to deny, but the denial is one that requires the finding of substantial impact, where we haven't looked at the conditions first. Next slide. Oh, that's okay. I don't know if you want to go about the water. So that ends the staff report. I'm happy to answer the commission's questions at this time.
At this time, if any commissioners have any questions for Mr. White at this time with respect to the staff report? Commissioner Madrid?
Scott, can you give me the base elevation? I have conflicting figures, anything from 158 to 149.7 on the parcel.
So at the bridge, it is 150.1.
Well, the bridge isn't there yet. I'm interested in where it is in relation to the
So
floodplain.
it's at the, I'm sorry, I should have clarified, at the existing bridge of Hahn Creek, the applicant has shown a contour of 150. That is the key one that we're looking for with where the proposed pedestrian bridge would go.
Water level at the base of the bridge?
So I can go check and see if you like. We can.
Well, I'm just, as I've gone through all of these documents, there's quite a variation.
Mhm.
So like I said, anything from 149.7 up to 158. And as far as where that line gets drawn, that's substantial.
Okay. Yeah, the highest elevation indicated in the applicant's hydraulic analysis there was 150.1. So that is the West Consultant's report there. That is one of the studies that was submitted. And so that is where we have that number, 150, and taken from the an area right next to the existing Han Creek Bridge.
Mhm. And then also, I'd be interested to know where that is deeper in the property, where the proposed overflow notch will be in the retaining wall.
Want to take a look?
You go back.
That was mentioned in the geotech result as well as their application
Yeah.
on
And the applicant, this might
Page
be also.
133.
Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Is that it one or is this?
There's the floodplain.
Yeah.
There's where it comes.
Yeah.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, I'm going to defer it over to Gordon, who's also been involved with the review of the applicant's floodplain analysis.
You guys hear me? Okay. So on their map, there is a line that shows the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, and the stormwater detention and treatment is between that line and the retaining wall. And there is a discharge that goes from that detention pond and crosses to the floodplain. So I don't know if that answered your question or.
Well, what I'm most concerned about is the emergency overflow flooding shown by the notch in the retaining wall. And that's on page 142. It's unclear from the drawing, or at least to my eyes, does it connect to the stormwater detention?
42.
Page 142.
Need to see that.
The plan does not show if it connects or not,
That's correct.
and that's easily dealt with in a specific design.
As a condition.
Well, you can do it as a condition, but it's also would be part of their specific design. I know this is called a design review, so there's a little bit of a mix up of what that word is. So this is design review with regards to land use planning. Then they put together detailed designs that have all the details of what occurs.
Mhm.
And in that, we'd probably have them grade that over to that detention pond. But you could
Okay.
certainly add that as
Well, I would like that detail
a-
addressed.
as a condition.
It just seems like a loose end where it's a drain, but it doesn't say where it drains to. So that's important. I don't know if this is the proper time, but I'm going to jump in and say on that same page, 142, where it refers to emergency overflow and the notch in that retaining wall, it's defining an emergency as flooding of the store, flooding of the fuel pumps, flooding of the parking area. And if that occurs, my question is, how will the discharge be treated before it enters the creek? Just a question.
Appreciate everybody's enthusiasm for this evening. There will be a time for public comment, but we would appreciate that
Just a
on all
question.
sides. The commentary will come at the appropriate time.
That's all I have at that moment for that particular piece.
Mr. White, will you reserve that for when we're addressing any additional conditions? Is that
Correct. Yeah, we're just taking notes here and making sure that things are addressed there, and Gordon and I can talk about it.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez-Madrid. Any other commissioners have any questions for Mr. White before we proceed to the applicant's presentation? Commissioner Rhodes.
On page 3 of the staff report, it states that there was oral comments conveyed to the city engineer by the Carlton Fire District. And I was just curious, since they weren't written, were there anything that we should know about that? I feel like putting in gas tanks, anything like that can raise alarm for possible fire risk and be near wetlands, so.
Yeah.
What the fire chief, information that they gave me was that the 1,500 gallons a minute for fire flow, and that there was no other specific conditions for this facility.
I will add, Commissioner Rhodes, that it is required, we do have a proposed condition of approval that the applicant will require a building permit through the city. And typically, anytime you have any sort of tanks, if there's anything like, propane tanks or anything like that, there are requirements for bollards and other things that would provide protection and ensure that there's safety. So that there will be further review of the building elements, I should say, in addition to what Gordon described with respect to the fire flow. So that was kind of, the fire flow is really more connected to the utilities. The building permit application will look at the safety elements of it.
I have a further question on that topic. On Hardman Geotechnical Services, page 360 is the narrative. Page 366 is a recent hydrant test just past the subject property, closer to Medoffery intersection. And the required is 1,500 PSI. On page 366, it said Wyatt Fire Protection contacted the city requesting to perform a hydrant flow test located at the southeast corner of the project site. City staff declined to permit a flow test due to the age of the hydrant. A recent flow test of the hydrant was conducted April 10th. The hydrant is located to the south of the project site and at a higher elevation, so the results are considered conservative. The flow test result is shown below. And on that date, at that location, the gallons per minute were 671, not the required 1,500.
Yes, that's
Is there
true.
a comment?
Yeah, we have a condition of approval concerning that.
Which is,
That they would have to upgrade the water system such that they could get the 1,500 gallons a minute. And that would be from 7th Street across their property.
so not to this hydrant.
It would be across their property. So it'd bring the flow to that development.
And what about beyond that?
That's not the applicant's responsibility.
Well, to the people who live in Carlton, do they have current acceptable flow at this point?
Past that?
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Concerning. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it is concerning, but
Yeah, I saw that and I just couldn't quite believe it. So, okay.
Are there any more questions for Mr. White or Mr. Monroe from the commission? Hearing none and seeing none, we will invite the applicant's representative, Mr. Steve Kay from Cascadia Planning and Development Services. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. There's a PowerPoint that I'm waiting for. For the record, my name's Steve Kay, Cascadia Planning and Development Services. My address, PO Box 1920 in Silverton, 97381. So tonight I'll provide you an overview of the development proposal. And after reviewing the public comments, I'd like to also take the opportunity to maybe clear up a few misconceptions about the project and address some citizen concerns that were identified that are related to the application's approval criteria. This project includes the development of a 4,200 square foot convenience store in the rear of the site. There's a 14 space parking area, a loading stall for deliveries, and an 8-pump fueling station with a canopy. The development also includes pavement widening along the site's Main Street frontage, the installation of several pedestrian bridge spans, and the construction of sidewalks that will provide connectivity to pedestrian facilities that are located to the west of the site. The site plan illustrates that the proposed development will not encroach into the sensitive areas west of the property, including the 100-year floodplain, wetlands, and the riparian area along the creek. Next slide. The subject site is zoned commercial business, which allows permitted and conditional uses that include a large variety of retail and service activities. It's important to note that the avoidance of the floodplain, the wetlands, and the riparian area is not something that is self-imposed by the applicant. Avoidance of these features on the site are required by the city's development code and would apply to any commercial use that is proposed for this property. The limited development site frontage on Main Street, the need to accommodate commercial delivery vehicles, the need to provide a turnaround on the site, those are all requirements that apply to any commercial business that is developed on this property. Therefore, to accommodate the turnaround and to provide safe turning movements in and out of the property, 2 one-way access points from Main Street are proposed through the modification process. To meet city standards for stormwater management, drainage from the parking areas and convenience store roof will be directed to a stormwater facility where treatment is provided. This facility is located outside of the sensitive areas, and after drainage is detained, stormwater will be released at the pre-development rate into a riprap area within the floodplain. To meet the city's requirement, all drainage under the field canopy is that area is graded so that it is collected separately and it is then sent to an oil water separator. As required by city standards, the separated water will then be directed into the city's sanitary sewer system. In order to provide the minimum 1,500 gallons per minute fire flow, the applicant will upsize the line from 7th Street to the subject site. It's important to note that the fire flow standard applies to any commercial use that is developed on this site. Next slide. The applicant's landscape plan illustrates that native vegetation is proposed to be installed in the area that's east of the wetlands. Meeting city standards, the 5 native trees will be installed as mitigation for the removal of 1 tree within the riprap area. And although perimeter screening is not required by code, the applicant has proposed to install an evergreen hedge along the east boundary of the parking lot to prevent headlights from shining into the adjacent property. Next slide. Included in the application packet is a diagram illustrating how fuel delivery trucks can safely turn into the property from Main Street and exit the site. Note that the illustration shows a worst-case scenario where a double trailer vehicle visits the site. Fuel deliveries and deliveries to the store will be scheduled on weekdays from mid-morning to late afternoon. Next slide. A transportation engineer prepared the submitted traffic impact analysis, which determined how many trips are generated by the proposed use and what impacts will occur to area roadways and intersections. Since the proposed convenience store and gas station serves the traveling public, this analysis determined that 60% of the peak hour morning trips and 56% of the projected peak hour evening trips result from pass-by traffic, meaning that these trips are from existing travelers and they do not add congestion to roadways or intersections when visits are made to the store or gas station. The number of new trips that are generated by the proposed use is 52 morning and 65 evening peak hour trips, which is significantly less than what would be generated by more intensive uses that are allowed in the commercial business zone, like a fast food restaurant or a drive-through facility. The transportation impact analysis concludes that area roadways and intersections will continue to operate within the city's safety and transportation capacity standards. The analysis also determined that evening peak hour queuing will be able to be accommodated completely on the site, even with an unlikely scenario like this where 10 F-450s are stopping for fuel at the same time. Next slide. This is the floor plan for the proposed convenience store. The store and the fuel pumps will operate between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. with 2 employees, one of which will be available to fill vehicles if needed for customers. A service counter, retail area, and restroom are located at the front of the store. The employee-only area includes a kitchen, refrigerated areas, an office, and storage areas. Next slide. The storefront includes significant window areas, metal awnings, a brick veneer, and textured concrete block front elevation. And since this is a single-story structure with awnings and a parapet roof, the applicant is requesting a modification to provide 42% of window area along the street-facing elevation. Next slide. The fueling station canopy will be a similar design to what is typically seen for this type of use. However, the applicant is not proposing any lighting along the fascia of the canopy. Next slide. Included with the submitted application packet is a photometric lighting plan for the canopy. The plan illustrates foot candle levels when the canopy is lit during early morning and evening operating hours. The definition of a foot candle is the amount of light that's generated from a single candle at a 1-foot distance. The lights will be fully recessed under the canopy to prevent light and glare from being directed towards neighboring properties or the street. This diagram indicates that under the canopy, the light intensity is as much as 10-foot candles. 2-foot candles are shine at the right-of-way, and only 1/10 of 1-foot candle shines along the east boundary of the site. Next slide. Information about the underground fuel tanks were not included with the submitted application materials since these requirements are regulated by DEQ. However, the next couple slides were prepared to provide additional information for citizens who express concerns about the safety of the fuel tanks and the potential impacts to the environment. Prior to the installation of the tanks, the applicant will be required to obtain a permit from DEQ. Staff members from this agency will be on site during construction to verify that the tanks are properly installed and anchored. There will be a 15,000 and a 17,000 gallon tank that's about 8 feet in diameter and are about 40 to 45 feet long. The tanks are made of fiberglass versus metal to prevent corrosion. The tanks are double-walled and sensors are installed to monitor if any fluids enter the space between the walls and the tanks. The fluid levels in the tanks are also continuously monitored, and an alarm system goes off if there's any difference between how much fuel is pumped into the tanks versus how much fuel is dispensed by customers. Next slide. Redundancy in determining if there's any leak in the system is provided by water and vapor monitoring wells around the tanks. These are monitoring systems. There are also monitoring systems for the fuel lines, and sumps are included in the system to collect potential spills either at the tank filling locations or at the fuel pumps. There's also a requirement to provide vapor collection at both the tank fueling and pump dispensing locations. DEQ provides inspections several times a year to ensure that all of these systems are working properly. DEQ also has protocols for when to replace equipment. Therefore, the installed tanks are not permitted to remain on the site for more than 30 years. Next slide. When reviewing this application, it's important to understand how the conditional use criteria is applied to this project. For example, when reviewing the language in 17-152-030D, it is clear that it does not focus on the aesthetics of the proposed development. What it does is restrict a conditional use from limiting or prohibiting primary uses on properties that surround the site. Due to screening and buffering between the proposed development and surrounding properties, the conditional use does not preclude uses on those properties. The nearest residential uses to the northeast are 130 feet from the conditional use, and those properties are screened by existing vegetation along the roadway. To the east, the residential use is 115 feet, and the tasting room is 150 feet from the conditional use. And both of these adjacent uses are screened by existing vegetation. To the south, the vineyard is 350 feet from the conditional use and is screened by existing vegetation. And to the west and southwest, the conditional use is screened by existing vegetation, and the residential uses are a minimum of 350 feet. Next slide. Section 17-152-030E states that if there are any impacts to a property that is adjacent to the conditional use, they can be mitigated through code standards or reasonable conditions of approval. The applicant acknowledges citizen concerns regarding potential impacts from the conditional use to the adjacent residential use, tasting room, and winery. Although there is buffering and screening between the uses, the applicant would like to amend the proposal to install a 6-foot-high concrete block or concrete panel wall along the east property line and connect it to the rear of the convenience store, which also effectively provides a concrete wall along the rear side of the structure. The applicant believes that this additional measure is reasonable and will address the concerns regarding potential noise or light impacts to the adjacent property. Next slide. The applicant agrees with the findings in the staff report, which detail how this land use application meets the criteria for approval. The applicant also accepts all the staff's recommended conditions of approval and is proposing an additional one for Planning Commission consideration. I thank you for your review this evening, and I'm available to answer your questions.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we would welcome any questions from commission members to the applicant. Chavez?
You have a delivery truck coming to the gas station, making such a wide turn. And it's a very narrow road. And do you have any provisions to provide some flagging when the truck is arriving to deliver the fuel? I mean, I'm just concerned that it's a wide turn, it's gonna block traffic, you know, chances to have an accident. How are you gonna control that?
Well, the turning diagram shows how the truck can safely turn into the site. It is one way for each driveway. So I don't foresee there be any issue for that truck to be able to turn in. And we showed a queuing analysis that none of the vehicles that would be visiting the site as patrons to the gas station or even the store would be blocking that truck's access. So I don't believe that would be a concern.
Do you have an idea of what time the deliveries will be? Because that can also limit the traffic.
Yeah, so deliveries are scheduled on weekdays, as I mentioned, mid-morning to afternoon. They wouldn't occur on the weekends or early morning.
Now you mentioned in case of we have a spill. Well, no, she was talking about that overflow, emergency overflow. And you have an all water separator.
Yes.
So my question is about the capacity for the all water separator to take this emergency overflow coming from the floodplain.
So the grading plan is maybe not as clear as it could be, but the way that the site is graded is that all drainage, anything that spills underneath the canopy is directed towards the center of the canopy where that oil water separator is. So a spill would not be directed towards the area where that overflow is shown on the grading plan. The parking lot is graded so that it would drain into the overflow if needed. And the intention is that the overflow would connect to the treatment pond that's shown on the site. That detail was not included, but of course would be worked out and that all the city standards would be met with the final grading plan.
So you think your grading will be enough to contain an overflow even from the floodplain? I mean, do we have an analysis for that?
So we know where the 100-year floodplain is. So we know where the limits of the flood would be. And we've located the storm pond and all the development outside of that area.
Do you have any concerns on left turns? Like a traffic coming from, I would say from the east, trying to turn into the gas station?
So the traffic analysis that was prepared, it looked at a number of different warrants. Was there a need for a left turn lane? Was there a need for a stoplight? Was there any needs for any kind of improvements to intersections in the area? It did not find that the traffic generated from this use met the level of any of those warrants. So according to the analysis, there's not enough traffic on that street, even with the proposed development and other things that are planned in the community to warrant a left turn lane and that it would be safe to turn left.
Is that study taking account what's going to be in 20 years from now?
It looks at everything that's currently approved, the existing development that's in town, and what's proposed. So it looks at those conditions.
Thank you.
I have several concerns, but we'll start with your evening peak hour and your morning peak hour. And according to the survey, this was done on a Tuesday around 10 a.m. Is that correct?
That sounds correct.
Okay. I live about 500 feet past the site. I have concerns with the site distance, and so I used your cited Henrico County Traffic Engineering stopping site distance document. And my concerns are that you have 3 speed zones. When you hit Old McMinnville Highway and Medofrey Road, it's 55 miles an hour. When you're in front of the development, it's 35, and on the other side of the bridge, it's suddenly 25. I took these pictures, and I'll be happy to share these with you on Saturday morning at 7:44 and 7:43. And what I'd like you to address is the stopping distance. The posted sign in front of the site is 35 miles an hour. The stopping distance is 250 feet in your report. Anyone who lives along that street knows people aren't going 35. If I split the difference, because I'm saying it's 55, and I come out at that street and it's a little bit like Chicken Little every time you want to turn in there because there's a rise to the east and there's a dip in the road that I'm calculating somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees. If you look at that picture, during the day, it's heavily shaded. There's a dip, and with anywhere from 250, your figure, and closer to 500, 495, my figure, I'm pretty nervous about the stopping distance and the visibility there. Your plan to have these two diagonal curbs, it's still a blind driveway. And from the glare from that time in the morning, as you're heading east, you can't see anything. So I have deep concerns about the safety of adding two more driveways at the lowest point of a dip where there's already visibility issues. That's during the day. At night, I don't know. I have some real deep concerns there. To Commissioner Chavez's point, if your frontage, including the creek, is 211 feet, and that's reduced to 126 feet with the driveway entrances, that doesn't meet code without this variance, without a major modification. And in the Yamhill County Public Works, Mark Lago's testimony, item number 5C, he realized that there was a problem with the turning radius, and they were saying they would need to add 3 feet to the north side of the street. It was on your slide there, in order for that tanker to maneuver the 90 degrees to get in there. And I believe, no, that's wetlands. I believe it was Gordon's comment that, it's going to be real tight.
The turning radius that's shown in our application packet does not include the 3 feet. So it was tight and it did meet the turning radius, but with the 3 feet extra, it certainly will have a buffer there to make that turn.
If the county recommends that and if we grant that. So if that wouldn't happen, you're
It's
confident
a
a
condition
truck
of
can get in there.
approval. It's a recommended condition of approval right now.
Right.
Right.
And that's why we're looking at it. So
Right.
I'm just saying, you're confident that a 57-foot tanker truck with a pup trailer can get in and out of there safely.
The turning diagram does say that they can make that turn.
I'm concerned about collision risk with the stopping site distance from that chart. I'm going to limit my comments to that at this point.
Commissioners? Commissioner Nordstrom.
I'm assuming, even though it wasn't clear in the materials, but I think from your pictures of the tanks, those are buried, right? Those are
Correct.
below ground.
Yes.
So one of my concerns is that part of the reason the flood plain demarcation is where it is because of elevation. And I know this because my own property was changed its demarcation because of elevation, not necessarily proximity. And so I'm concerned about the fact that these tanks are now below elevation in a floodplain area. And I mean, yes, we do have to go based on the best idea of where 100-year floodplain line is, but it's not a barrier, right? It is, I mean, water's gonna go where water's gonna go. And I guess I'm curious what can you address this idea that the tanks are actually below elevation and potentially have a greater flood risk? What's happening to mitigate that?
So the bottom of the tanks is approximately 150. And there is a retaining wall that separates them from the floodplain area. And they will also, in my exhibit that I showed, they're anchored. They're anchored in the ground in addition to being covered.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the picture where the retaining wall was. It looked like it was closer. Was there another retaining wall is there another retaining wall on the property? The retaining wall that was, maybe that was the,
There's a retaining wall at the edge of the parking lot, and the tanks would be behind that.
is there a wall? There's a wall all along the edge of the,
That's correct.
Jennifer, it's page 142 in the packet.
So we talked a little bit about sound pollution for the properties abutting this applicant's, and I'm just curious, with the 6-foot concrete wall, how much is that actually going to reduce noise pollution? Is there any statistics based on the noise that's currently going on right now, and how much that would be mitigated with that 6-foot concrete wall? And then also with that new wall, would that affect the attraction of that area? Because I know the winery is there, and I know that they're very much on the view and the pretty and all that. So would that affect them with that new addition?
So again, there is screening, there is vegetation between the property line and the winery. So they might not even see the wall through that. But the applicant is willing to provide or install concrete panels, and they can be made to look like a cedar fence if that was desired by the commission. Applicant's open to that. Or some other kind of attractive concrete block design. As far as mitigating noise, concrete walls are used along freeways. I mean, they obviously are used to mitigate noise. I can't give you, the amount of decibels that it would block or anything like that necessarily, but it's a pretty good way to dampen noise.
When it comes to the surrounding landscaping, is that going to be upkept by the applicant, or is it just going to be they've set it up and then it's just that was good enough?
Yes, there's a requirement to continually maintain any landscaping that we install on the site.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Madrid?
On page 371, staff exhibit B3, under the conditions of approval, item B says requiring site or architectural design features, which we've been discussing, which minimize environmental impacts such as noise, vibration, exhaust emissions, light, glare, erosion, odor, and dust. As to the noise and the vibration, which, we can say people coming in there and fueling will create, as well as the tanker trucks, how do you mitigate vibration?
Well, the tanker trucks possibly might have vibration associated with them, but everybody in this room has been to a gas station. I don't feel vibrations when I'm at a gas station normally, even when I'm on site. So I don't think that will be significant issue for anyone that's 130, 150 feet away. And the scheduling of the fuel trucks will be on weekdays, as I mentioned. As I understand, the winery is open on the weekends. So that helps mitigate the issue
Okay.
as well.
As far as odor, how would you mitigate that?
Well, there is vapor collection systems for dispensing and for fueling. So we've all been next to a gas station. You don't smell them all the time.
Gas stations smell like gas stations.
You smell it when you're fueling, but not when you're 100 feet away.
Glare, I noticed that you had some offset in terms of the property to the east, the apartments to the west, and the Thurman residence, which is directly across the street, certainly in the evenings, if you're open till 10, will be subject to headlights sweeping across the front of their property into their living room. Could you do anything for those folks?
So there is vegetation that's along the right of way that does block impacts, I think, from any lights that would be coming out of there across the street. And to the west, there's a lot of vegetation that's along Hahn Creek that would block that area.
Right, but the home site that I'm referencing is not quite across from Carlo and Julian, but closer to the site.
If we went back to the slide, be able to see that there is vegetation along that right of way in that section.
Couple big oak trees, yep. One other thing, when we talked about on that same page, staff exhibit B3, number G, requiring the landscaping, and staff exhibit B3, item G, requiring the landscaping, screening, drainage, water quality facilities, et cetera. And number L, requiring the protection and preservation of existing trees, soils, vegetation, watercourse, habitat areas, drainage areas, historic, cultural, or sensitive lands. In staff exhibit B1, Gordon mentioned on item 2B that there are no improvements shown to be constructed in the wetlands. However, the edge for the riprap of the storm system is shown to be constructed to the edge of the wetlands. Quote, "It would be challenging to construct this without impact to the wetlands." Can you speak to that?
That riprap area does not extend into the wetlands, so.
But getting that rock there.
It'd be coming down from the top, not from the bottom, so there's no reason to extend construction into the wetland area. There would also be erosion control that would be set up before that's done, so that would prevent.
There's a plastic delineator. Gordon, do you want to speak to that? It was your comment, so. So it's page 367 under wetlands, item B.
Right, so they're building it right up to the boundary. It's going to be hard to do that and not impact the wetlands, and we have a condition of approval that addresses that. That says that if they do impact the wetlands, they're going to have to mitigate that, but it's going to be pretty minor. But,
How would they mitigate it?
well, that would be with plantings and.
That's in item C. It says, it shall provide for mitigation for wetland disturbed during
Right.
the construction process. So it sounds like that would happen.
It might. That's the reason that condition is in there. If it happens, we're going to make them mitigate it. If it doesn't happen, that's even better.
Okay. One more item. Sorry, I spent a lot of time going through this, so I'm trying to get my money's worth. That's one. And, right in front of me. Okay, page 277 from Department of State Lands, letter by Peter Ryan, Aquatic Resource Specialist. Second paragraph, he says, the wetland and waterway are subject to permit requirements under the state removal fill law. Under current regulations, the state's required for a cumulative fill or annual excavation of 50 cubic yards or more in wetlands or below the ordinary high water line. That's why I wanted to know where that base is, because it varies from 148 to 158. There was a violation last July 8th when the owner brought in certainly more than 50 cubic feet. You and I spoke about that. I know you don't like me to call it contaminated, but it did have broken concrete in it. 15 plus dump truck loads of fill that got dumped on top of before there was a delineation. So given that, I see that Mr. Ryan, who noted it, says, please be advised that state law establishes a preference for avoiding impacts to waters of the state. And because measures to avoid and minimize impacts to waters of the state may include reconfiguring this, we recommend the avoidance of this. So again, it's contentious. Continue on page 287 under wetland, description of wetland and other waters, channel 1, so it's about midway on the page 287. It says the stream drains areas north of the site, including a portion, this was to the north of the site, the Carlton Lake State Wild Refuge, which flows into Han Creek approximately for a mile, and therefore it is riverine flow through RTF. And while this study area measures 208 linear feet and it's approximately 7 feet wide, it's deeply incised due to erosion with nearly vertical banks. And so I'm pretty concerned about that, that retaining wall. How far down is that going to go? And to to Jennifer's comment, if there is a leak and it's graded and it's going to run toward that wall, and then I know there's that notch with the undocumented or we don't know where that's going to drain. If there's liquids that, as you said, water's going to go where it's going to go, or fluids along the base of that wall, and it's concrete and concrete, at some point it needs out. And you mentioned your sump pumps. So if it's closer to the pumps, more on the east side, and the grade is such, where are those sump pumps going to take that fluid?
So the area that's underneath the canopies where the potential spill that you're mentioning does not, it's graded to go towards the interior of the canopy.
The oil
not
water
towards-
separator.
Yeah, not
Okay.
towards the retaining wall.
Okay. And from reading up on that, the oil water separator that's in the center, assuming it's all going to flow to that, filters through sand. And then the sand, what goes through that goes into the city's sanitary water system. Is that correct?
I'm not up on the design of the oil water separator, but it does separate the oil from the water. The separated water would continue into the
That's
sewer
what the
system.
drawings
Yes.
indicated. Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Madrid. It is now approaching 7:35 p.m. The benefit of sitting here is that we get to call short recesses for those in the community and those up here who would like to check on the facilities. So we will plan on coming back here. Is 5 minutes enough for everybody? Would you like 10? It's kind of like Price is Right. I always defer to the highest, so I will go with the 10-minute. We'll come back here at 7:45. Thank you to everybody. All right, everybody. We have returned. We're going to resume our planning commission this evening. This is what we would informally call the popcorn session. We are going to be having public comment at this point. We would invite all of those here in attendance and those who are visiting us virtually from Zoom. To address the commission on the matter that is before us this evening, these three matters that are the quasi judicial hearing. As I shared earlier, we welcome commentary and perspectives from every single person here and visiting in a virtual sense. We do ask and will, because of the nature of the expected participation, we will be limiting people to 3 minutes. So there is going to be, at some point, well, I'll at least see a point up here. We'll notify you if you do approach 3 minutes and you're going over. We'll ask that you respectfully and promptly close your statements. If you do feel like somebody who's come before you has shared a very thoughtful perspective, and that's really one you'd like to reiterate, simply saying your name and your address, which is required of everybody giving public testimony tonight is the first requirement, and you can simply vote in affirmation of what has been said before. With that said, I have a 3-page stack of people who are very interested to share their perspective, and in no special order, I'll be calling them. But before I start, is there anybody who would like to make a comment that has to run, who would like me to go out of order as a matter of community pride? There's a gentleman over there wearing the black with a white dot. Your name, sir?
And as long as we're talking about exemptions and conditional uses, if I could, I'd like to pull my time together with my wife and we can speak together. That's all right?
Sure. How would I spell your last name?
It's a long one. It's G-I-A.
Oh, Gimanco. Ian and Sarah.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. If you could state your name one more time and your address for the
Yes.
record.
My name is Ian Giamacco. This is my wife, Sarah. We live at 148 South 7th, almost directly across from where the proposed gas station would go in. So let me get underway here. We're here to.
May I ask you just to scoot just a little bit closer to the microphone, sir, please?
Absolutely. So we are here to voice our firm opposition to the gas station going in on Han Creek. A gas station would violate the first two tenets of Carlton's 2024 vision statement: rural heritage and small town character. A gas station would effectively eliminate the small town feel of Carlton and would completely ignore our rural community roots. Although the subject lot is indeed zoned commercial business, it is far away from the downtown commercial core and would stick out like a sore thumb, as all surrounding properties are zoned low to medium density residential and agricultural holding. The original plan for this commercial development, or for the approval of a commercial zoning designation, was for a bed and breakfast, which would be a much more suitable and compatible use of the property. It would also violate the family-friendly neighborhoods. A gas station would make Carlton less safe and less family-friendly by increasing traffic, noise, fumes, and congestion. Frequent fuel truck deliveries, no matter what time of day, would create an increased traffic hazard at the entrance to town, and the potential for fuel oil leakage into Han Creek and surrounding groundwater poses a substantial risk to our pristine natural environment. Additionally, in Carlton Development Code 17.056.010, it states that the site design review process will comply with 6 specific goals. This gas station will overtly violate 3 of those stated goals as follows: guide future growth and development in accordance with the comprehensive plan and other related ordinances. This developer is asking for multiple exemptions to requirements and ordinances in order to shoehorn this gas station into a lot unsuitable for that purpose. A portion of the 100-year floodplain of Han Creek is located within the western portion of the subject property. Lastly, the applicant has requested modification of the driveway spacing standards to accommodate a turnaround for delivery vehicles. The minimum access spacing standard listed in CDC 17.100.030 is 110 feet for arterial class streets. The applicant's plans depict a proposed distance of approximately 48 feet between accesses, less than half of what is required. It also violates ensure safe, functional, energy efficient developments which are compatible with the natural and man-made environment. New modern gas station is not compatible with the natural or developed parts of Carlton, period. Lastly, implement design standards contained in this title, which are intended to allow new development that is visually compatible with the historic context of commercial development within Carlton. A gas station and convenience store is not at all visually compatible with the historic context of commercial development in Carlton. This whole town has seen this new civic center and how incongruent it is with existing buildings in Carlton, to say nothing of what a huge waste of money it was. I hope that the committee has by now realized what a huge mistake this was, and they do not double down by allowing this gas station.
On a personal note, we just actually moved to Carlton here in March, and the main reason we moved here was because of how cute and small and rural and wonderful it was. I love driving to work. I go out on Main and I get to drive through the country, and it's my favorite part of the day, actually, because when we lived in McMinnville, we'd work in Tualatin. It was a nightmare. I despise 99. This was ideal. We would never ever would have moved here. Never even would have considered it had we known. And I'm kind of bummed that we didn't take more time to figure it out, because if this goes through, I mean, I know that it says that our property values will not go down, but there's zero chance that won't happen. And as you know, interest rates suck. And so we got hosed when we bought this house, you know, where we thought this was it. We never stay anywhere for more than 10 years, but we were fingers crossed. But we won't have the chance to sell and move somewhere better if this place goes in. So, lastly, our daughter has what is considered a terminal, life-threatening respiratory disease, and having something like this right behind us would directly impact her ability to be outside and be able to enjoy things, regardless of what they say about the fumes and the whatnot. So, thank you.
Thank you both. Normally in these hearings, we like to organize those who speak here in public comment or in a publicly invited comment into those proponents, those who are opponents, and those who might just want to speak as a neutral commentator. Since we'd started with an opponent, I would like to welcome, if I list your name and you do have a statement in support, I would ask you just to let me know, and we will just collect those and do those all after we have finished any statements in opposition. In no special order, the next person is, I think, Robin Miguel. She's gone. So we will put a frowning face next to her name here, but thank her for the civic engagement, no less. The next is, I'm guessing, Felix Madrid. Yeah, I not based upon the spelling there, I had to go with Carlo Jewel Wine as my hint.
Well, as you know, my name is Felix Madrid, and I live at 1000 East Main Street. And I have two letters. This one that I'm going to read is, I timed it at 3 minutes. This other one is a little longer, but I'd like you to have a copy of each of these.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And have these been submitted privately through the city, or should I have these directed to the city to include as part of the record?
The copies that you have in front of you have not yet been submitted
Excellent.
to the city, except as I've now given them to you, and you are part of the city.
I'll make sure it gets passed on.
So I can read a little faster. I'll put my glasses on. 714 East Main Street is surrounded on all sides by homes. It's a residential neighborhood. Its commercial designation is an accident, a byproduct of the previous owner's plans in 2006 for a bed and breakfast country inn, which would have been a far more appropriate use of the land. The subject property is not a good site for the proposed use, does not honor the city's comprehensive plan, its development code, or the wishes of its residents. It would harm residents and visitors to Carlton. Why is staff so intent on having planning approve this proposal when it so clearly does not meet the city's own criteria and when there is so much community opposition? What does the city stand to gain by this approval? The answer is, of course, money. The city of Carlton is in a fiscal crisis because we have been and will continue paying for an $8.8 million building, in part with monies that have been collected and should have been allocated for infrastructure, and because, importantly, The city chose to bypass the general obligation bond process because, as they have admitted, they didn't have voter support for the project the city had in mind, which was an overly large administrative and police building with an armory and a jail cell. According to consultants' work presented at the August 11th, 2025 Joint Planning and Council meeting, the City of Carlton faces yearly budget shortfalls of $454,000 for near-term projects, yearly budget shortfalls of almost $500,000. What it seems the city is after is the SDCs the project would bring. An SDC is, quote, system development charge, end quote.
Mr.
which
Madrid, we've
the
hit the
city-
time limit, so I'm going to give you just one more minute because you had an eloquent introduction.
The city levies on the developer. They're levied for a host of process implementations. With increasing design complexity goes the possibility of increased SDCs. This is a zero-sum game the city is playing with us. City staff seems happy to throw us under the bus with the hits on our health and well-being that are inherent in this project's approval and to disregard their own carefully delineated development plans for the funds they would receive. A reasonable and fiscally responsible project was suggested to the city, that of contracting with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Department for police service. Doing so would net the city $2 million over 5 years, yet the city refuses to consider the sound fiscal strategy. The city manager has instead recently answered a citizen request for a funding proposal with misinformation and unsupported statements with references that I've provided to you.
Mr. Madrid, we're going to pause you right there. The rest of this, as well as your fuller letter, will be passed along to our city team.
You should deny this proposal. Thank you.
Sir, appreciate it. It'd be better coming to you, Amy. All right, our next invited guest is Robin Brown. Good evening, Ms. Brown.
My name is Robin Brown, and I live at 132 North 7th Street here in Carlton. Dear members of the Planning Commission, first, thank you all for the time you each give to serve our community. Your important work really matters. And Amy, thank you for all you do. We trust you to make the right choices for the people of Carlton. Under Section 17.152 of the Carlton Development Code, you have the authority to deny a project based on public welfare and the protection of neighboring properties. You are empowered by city code to use your judgment to bring a human element to protect the welfare of our community. The city's own design review packet states that the process ensures compatible development and helps resolve conflicts between proposed projects and adjacent uses. It seems so far the process is only resolving conflicts for the applicant. The proposal before you, a gas station beside Hong Creek and its wetlands next to a working vineyard with sheep and surrounded by homes, is exactly the kind of decision where your responsibility truly matters. I'm submitting a petition to you signed by over 200 people, 160 of them Carlton residents, all opposing this project. We do not agree on everything in this town, but we do agree on this. A gas station on Hong Creek is wrong for Carlton. We are here to tell you that we represent the body that is substantially impacted. You talked about bodies that are impacted yesterday. We are the body. The applicant's own design with oil water separators, grease traps, and whatnot admits the danger of fuel, oil, and antifreeze reaching Hong Creek. The fines may fall on the developer's multi-LLCs that are on this property, probably so he can mitigate whatever damage comes, but the damage will fall on our families and wetlands. Carlton was fined over $11,000 for discharging untreated sewage into the same creek. Approving a gas station beside it invites future violations. And if Marathon Petroleum supplies this site, as it does Mr. Joel Haas Station in Yamhill, note that Marathon paid $64.5 million federal fine in 2024, the largest ever for the Clean Air Act violation. This is who we're dealing with. Is this really who we want coming into our neighborhood and filling those fuel tanks? This is what's really going on here. It's big gas money. Next, traffic and safety. Exhibit A3 shows how poorly this project fits. We heard tonight how there are minor changes. There's nothing really, no big modifications. It says directly on page 57 about this driveway that it is a major modification. The traffic study was done on a Tuesday in February, our slowest month. It underrepresents real conditions. We should not grant variances that widen roads, block traffic, fuel trucks, and reduce home values. I ask the city to require an independent traffic review. And if this is about money, then short-term fees will not offset long-term costs. And this station will only siphon money from the other gas station, so the tax revenue from there will be reduced. I ask that any projected revenue or income be made public so citizens can understand why this plan is even being considered. You have both the legal authority and the moral responsibility to protect this town. We already have a gas station. What we need is thoughtful growth that aligns with Carlton's comprehensive plan. Please deny this application and protect the integrity of the community we love.
Thank you, ma'am. The next contestant on Carlton's Price is Right is Kathy Dorner. Am I pronouncing that? Or Dornay? Is it Dorner? I'm making it too fancy. Thank you, Ms. Dorner. Welcome this evening.
Kathy Dorner, 11200 Northeast Medofrey Road. The petition opposing the gas station has collected 78 comments. I won't, of course, read them all, but I want you to understand the legitimate concerns that people have about this application. These are some of the key issues. Environmental impact. All gas stations eventually leak. Fuel stations create fumes and fuel runoff. Hahn Creek is a wetland that is home to wildlife. A gas station next to Hahn Creek will be devastating to western pond turtles. A gas station is not appropriate in this FEMA floodplain. Significant risk if any chemicals or gas leak into the adjacent wildlife and winery. No responsible oil company would consider this site as a viable gas station. Traffic and safety. East Main is not a highway. It has no sidewalk, just a skinny road with just enough hill to cause more accidents. Large trucks barreling down Main Street, then add more trucks turning into the gas station where there isn't room to turn. Adds to congestion on a narrow road that is dark and already congested from the increase in home in that general vicinity. Health and well-being. Unnecessary health risks for residents in the vicinity. Noise, air pollution, potential health issues from fumes, fluorescent lighting. My view from my window at night will no longer have a dark sky. Light pollution in our backyard. Community and quality of life. Will destroy the quaint character of our town and the vision for Carlton we all submitted to the city. Impact to the property values in the J.R. Meadows community. It does not fit in with the surrounding area of residential farmland and winery. This idea does not fit with our concept of a great little town. We moved to Carlton over 30 years ago because of the small town peace and quiet and country charm. Don't turn Carlton into a suburb of Portland. What would be the benefit of another gas station? Comments were, this gas station will not benefit our community and will harm our environment, changing the landscape of Carlton forever. This little town does not need a second gas station, another convenience store. They have a new second gas station in Yamhill. That's enough. We already have a gas station. This will affect a local family-owned business that supports our community events. I will end this one last comment who offers a piece of advice that I think pretty much sums up what most petition signers were feeling about with this application. Just say no.
Thank you, Ms. Stormer. Somebody who may be nearly related to John Dorner? Just a wild guess. Good evening, Mr. Dorner. Your name and address, please, for the record.
That was my significant other that last spoke, John Dorner, 11200 Northeast Medofrey Road. Good evening, Commissioners. So Carlton is growing. Let's grow into something that we all feel has the pleasant small town vibe that brought us here, okay? This guy, Joe Paul, he has several gas stations in the multiple county area around here. I mean, it's kind of his thing, convenience stores. He started out, he was going to have a laundromat and a convenience store at 714. And then it escalated into an 8-barrel gas station. And it is on a floodplain out there, and it's just bad sighting. Mr. Joe Paul runs the Taste of India downtown in McMinnville. And why wouldn't he build a Taste of India here in Carlton? That would work with our wineries. It would work with our restaurants. It would be an instant hit to draw people out here, which is what this town runs on commercially. So why not consider that instead of the gas station? Electric cars are the next thing, not gas. Okay. And then finally, I'd like to give you the baseball analogy that you don't have to swing at the first pitch. Okay. Thank you.
Next, Mr. William, I don't know if it's Machado or Machado?
Second one.
Portuguese, not the Spanish. Good evening,
Yes.
Mr. Machado.
Evening. I'm told I'm soft spoken, so can everybody hear me okay? No? Is this better? All right, here, I'll do this. William Machado, 727 East Washington Street. Before I begin my comments, I would like to refer the commission to the letter I've previously submitted. Sorry for the 12 pages, but it has more detail, specifically the codes that I'm not going to spell out at this time. But I would ask you to carefully consider the conditional use permit approval criteria items B, D, and E, as well as the criteria and procedure for major variance item C when you review this application. Excuse me. The applicant is requesting modifications to arterial street and right-of-way standards to allow 2 one-way driveways spaced 59 feet apart, while code requires minimum of 110 feet. In their comments in the application, I'm going to paraphrase. So these are my words. I'm taking their words and putting into mine. Because the site is encumbered by the floodplain, wetlands, Hahn Creek, and the Hahn Creek Bridge, the remaining property width forces the applicant to propose 2 driveways to accommodate fuel truck vehicles. And if required to eliminate one of them, they couldn't develop a reasonably sized property, resulting in an unusual hardship if the requested modifications are not approved. In my opinion, given the applicant has developed multiple gas station properties, he would recognize all the encumbrances this property has and would realize the hardships. Trying to develop a gas station onto this site, to me, is in itself a self-created hardship by the applicant, and it's not incumbent upon the city to remedy the inadequacies. In fact, city code modification of a right-of-way specifically states self-imposed hardships shall not be used as a reason to grant a modification request. It's been brought up about adding the additional 3 feet of pavement to accommodate the turns. And are we giving public right-of-way to the applicant? I'm not sure how that works. He's also proposing to build a 5-foot wide pedestrian bridge and a 5-foot sidewalk on the east side of the creek. But I believe bike lanes are also required for arterial streets, and I don't see any bike lane plans either for the bridge or the new sidewalk that he's planning to build on the other side. So maybe the bridge should be 10 feet to accommodate both of those. I was going to comment on screening and buffering, but it seems the applicant was willing to put in a 6-foot concrete fence along the east property line, which is good. Maybe 10 feet would be better. I think the residence at Carl and Julian's more like 70 feet to the property line, not 115, but that's neither here or there at the moment. Well, in conclusion, the proposed fuel station market is incompatible with Carlton's community values, environmental protection goals, and neighborhood character. I don't believe it serves public welfare. Respectively urge the Planning Commission and Council to deny this application. And just one last comment, and maybe Mr. Kay can comment afterwards. There was a public social media comment about the potential sale of the Yamhill station. It's the same owner. I'm just curious if he has a comment about that because it was just finished this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Machado. Is there also a Teresa Machado? Or Teresa? And I think there's another name in here. Is it Safe? Am I saying, is that right?
Hi, I'm Teresa Safe Machado.
Safe.
I live with him at 727 East Washington Street. And this should be really easy because the ink is barely dry on the comprehensive plan our community spent months drafting and approving. It contains a development code that reflects our intent to grow to a community that works for all of us. Now we have the first applicant since the approval of that document asking for not one, but 3 variances, one being a major variance. The mere fact that he is requesting these variances lays bare the fact that he has a property not suited to his needs. Now he wants Carlton to abandon their codes to suit his desires, and that's just nonsense. It is not the obligation of the city of Carlton to make sure a developer can build whatever they want, regardless of the obstacles presented by the land they purchased. Instead, it is incumbent on our leaders to require the developers to conform to the codes that were thoughtfully crafted with input from the citizens, city leaders, and contracted consultants. Allowing him to get away with this will set a dangerous precedent to simply ignore the codes requirements to satisfy the whims of developers to build whatever they choose, regardless of the suitability of their property. This is the first test of your ability to require conformance to your new codes. Bonus will be that the people of Carlton are overwhelmingly opposed to this project, so you're going to do us a good solid one there. The development code applicable to the conditional use permit criteria for approval states, quote, "The proposed use will not alter the character of the surrounding area in a manner that substantially limits, impairs, or precludes the use of surrounding properties for the primary use listed in the underlying district." Well, a gas station wedged between Han Creek and its floodplains and wetlands, the city pumping station, and a residence winery with organic vineyard would surely alter the character of the area. The applicant is requesting both major and minor modifications to several code requirements, including arterial street standards, driveway spacing, and right-of-way standards. The applicant's own words on page 32 of the application state, quote, "If the applicant were required to eliminate one of the proposed driveways, there would not be adequate space on the site to accommodate the delivery vehicle turnaround and develop a reasonably sized commercial use on the property. As demonstrated by the floodplain and wetlands on the property, therefore, due to the small developable area on the property, an unusual hardship would result if the requested modification was not approved." End quote. Given these comments from the very applicant, perhaps the site is not appropriate for his intended use. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Machado. The next person we will invite is Ms. Alice Patridge. Good evening.
Hi, my name's Alice Patridge. I live at 687 North Coolidge Street. I've been here since 2017, and I've been driving school bus for 8 years. That's part of my route. This is extremely troubling to me because I see a minimum of 15 times per week I'm going in this area. And I see the risks, I see the narrowness of the road. And I've been to these meetings before, and I've commented on how all these new wonderful developments are going in around, and they're circling around 125-year-old infrastructure that is not adequate, as was stated originally. It's substandard to start with. And it's like a slap in the face to the existing residents that things are being modified and changed, and they're still stuck with roads that don't have any curbs or are it sorely wide enough. One of the foundational things that I believe is if you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it. And also hindsight is 2020, 10 or 15 years down the road, are we going to go, oh, wow, we forgot to mitigate the whole concrete and asphalt covering where the rain can't go down and get into, and all of a sudden the floodplain and the amount of water that's going through the Hahn Creek area is much higher than it was predicted. Those things are happening all over. The codes and the rules, whether we can't change them now, but maybe they need to be looked at, because a lot of these things seem to be going by the skin of your teeth to get through them. And maybe we need to go back. For instance, construction used to be adequate. Now everything's having to get retrofitted. Okay, we need to look long range, what we're leaving in the future and how it's going to affect, because we don't know. Things are getting worse all over. The climate things that are happening, the amount of rain. Many times I've driven over that bridge and the water's right up underneath there when in the storm times. It's got to go somewhere. It's going to be a problem. And you're throwing concrete down on the ground, which is going to further limit the saturation of that soil. Seriously, has this been considered at all? Or are they just going by records from the past? We're not dealing with records from the past. We're dealing with large changes that are being put in our environment, that the natural flow, and like one lady said, that, the water's got to go somewhere. It's going to get contaminated. This doesn't even address the fact that they want to put in a car wash. That's a lot of reused water and potential other contamination. There is just so many things that just do not fit. And coming the traffic wise, I can't tell you how many times in a bus with air brakes, I've had to put my brakes on because somebody decide, oops, we're going to pull out. And it's not safe. And a 40-foot bus trying to turn on the corners, I can't imagine. What if a commercial truck wants to come in there and they're not quite used to having to deal with it? It's Band-Aids over big open wounds that need not to be there in the first place.
Thank you, Ms. Patridge. Next up is, I believe this is the one and only former Commissioner Robin Geck. She had to go. I was looking forward to saying hi. That's another unhappy frowning face. Alan Mandel. Am I saying that correctly? amandel@aol.com. Maybe he upgraded to Gmail and moved on from us. Either way, we hope he has a wonderful and safe evening. Next is Mr. Peter Sturman.
Hi, my piece is going to be brief. My name is Peter Sturban and I live at 108 South 5th Street. One thing I would like to say right up front is that the applicant made much about the vegetation providing shielding from this property or this proposed property. I would point out that most of this vegetation is deciduous, and during the wintertime, most of that sheltering will not be provided. Just wanted to make that clear. My wife and I moved here in November 2015. For the first 7 years, I commuted to my work, mostly heading east on Main Street towards Newburgh. In all that time, and in all those crossings of Horn Creek, never once did I think, gee, I wish there was a gas station and a convenience store right here. By allowing this application to go through, the city would be trading a sensitive watershed and wetland environment, a long-established winery and vineyard, Carlo and Julian's, and the peaceful nature of Carlton's east side for a gas station and convenience store that no one in this city wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturman. The next we would like to invite is Karen Veach. Did I pronounce the last name correctly? I did great.
Yep, Karen Beach, 10880 Northwest Old Soldiers Road.
However, I grew up about 4 houses from this place. I remember the little old lady, Irene, who lived in that house. She left it pristine. She had a beautiful yard. The neighbor next to her also had a beautiful yard. We played down there, tons of wildlife, vegetation, and all that. I will say, my husband and I walked down there recently, just because of all the building, we've seen what's happened to Han Creek. And, it's diminished in some ways from the wildlife and a little bit of the environmental. I didn't see, or maybe I missed it, anything about seismic. Sure, we don't get a lot of earthquakes, but I lived in California for a while. We're also due, from what I hear up here. Would like to know how we're going to mitigate any kind of seismic activity. I didn't see anything on environmental and wildlife. There is lots of wildlife that we need to protect. And as far as the road, my mother still lives there. It's very dangerous for her to go even get her mail or to pull out of her driveway. It's very dangerous. Thank you for pointing that out. It is extremely dangerous. I would hate to have blood on my hands for somebody getting killed there or in an accident or run over. It's just not, sufficient. As far as protecting the Thurman's home from, some kind of vegetation and light, sorry, whatever your excuse was is not adequate. It's not going to do it. So, as everybody has said, it's not a good idea. We would really love for all of you, I think I've lived here longer than most of you, except maybe Brian, to really take into consideration those of us who have lived here and the community and that area that is so beautiful. And it shouldn't really be commercial. I don't know why it is. I don't know why somebody didn't, inform the neighbors of that. But please consider the environmental impact, seismic impact, wildlife impact. And again, like somebody suggested, do your own traffic analysis. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beach. Next, we will invite Ms. Frugier, Chris Frugier.
I don't have all the stats everybody has.
Good evening, Ms. Frugier.
Hi, Chris Roget, 310 West Lincoln. I find it very strange right now that we are all having to convince you. I don't think we should have to convince you of anything. It's like a no-brainer. I'm surrounded by people going, they don't care, they just want the money. I'm like, why? I don't want to believe that. I do not want to believe that. And this man here should tell his boss that that's a skinny little street and his other gas stations are on highways. That is not a highway. That's not even a two-way lane, really. So report that in. Because I don't understand why we have to convince you. I just think it's a no-brainer. And I appreciate you all saying no to every little variance, every little thing they ask for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frugier. Next, we will invite Jamie Eglund. I believe am I pronouncing that correct, Ms. Eglund? Excellent.
Hi, thank you, and thank you guys for all being here. I won't read what I wrote because I agree with everything that's been said. I do want to say, though, I would like further discussion regarding the donating of our public right-of-way owned by us to a for-profit entity. And I would respectfully urge the commission to deny the application. So, and thank you all for your work you do.
Thank you, ma'am. Is Miss Catherine Jernstedt present? I think she's.
My name is Catherine Jernstedt, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Friends of Yamhill County. Our address is the Post Office Box in McMinnville, being an all-volunteer group. On a personal note, I live out on Mineral Springs Road. We are a land use watchdog and advocacy group to work to protect natural resources through the implementation of land use laws, codes, and other policies. Look through the staff report, application. I can't say I read every page of the agenda package, but I really tried to look at them. One of the things that's apparent is I read the original request that had the laundromat and all that stuff. And it's clear that the scope of the request has been reduced. And, I still had a couple of questions, but in our opinion, the key takeaway here is that a spot zoned commercial business parcel surrounded by agricultural holdings and adjacent to wetlands and water habitat is not appropriate. This is a big part of why we actively fight against spot zoning. Someone comes with a request, they're nice people, and it seems like it'd be a good use, and well, maybe it wasn't adequately funded or worked out on a business plan. It fails. Someone sees this land and seizes upon it for a totally different use. And by the time they've come in from the wetlands, dealt with mitigations and setbacks from neighbors, all of a sudden this 1.3 acre parcel is just not big enough for what they want to do without an enormous pressure against the wetlands and natural resources. Again, it's a conditional use permit, and there've been a lot of discussions about conditions, but there's a point at which you just have to own up to the fact that however cute the shoes are, they don't fit. And you need to maybe take your business someplace else. The other aspect of this is the complexity of the agencies and jurisdictions involved. A number of them show up in the report. Some that, DEQ declined to comment on land use, but they've got a whole bunch of administrative rules related to underground storage tanks, which will quite possibly impact the footprint above ground. Not to mention, as others have talked about, the degree of excavation that may be required to comply. And again, this is not even on the table. Again, much is made of our time in the town and its cuteness and all that. I remember when there were 2 gas stations in town, both locally owned and operated, and they're up on the bend in 47. The value of clustering of commercial activities, especially when it is a road-related business, is extremely significant. The other one I would like to say is out there on Mineral Springs Road. Actually, it was at the old McMinnville Highway at Jernstead Road. There was a significant fire. We don't have fire hydrants out there. They had to truck water from across the Hahn Creek Bridge out past, turn on McMinnville Highway and take it out into the country. That bridge has had its challenges, and those of us who rely on it being there to provide water, this is a fire life safety issue.
Ms. Turnstead, we've let you go an extra minute if you could bring it to a close.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe that's a statement in opposition, correct?
Yes, it is. And that was the last line. We respectfully request that the applicant's request be denied. And this has been provided in copies. I don't know that I made enough.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a Matthew Ahern or Aaron? Ahern, okay, excellent. Good evening, sir.
Hi, my name is Matthew Ahern. I live at 708 East Lincoln Street. We've been here for about coming up on 6 years now, and we've loved every minute of it so far. I think a lot of people have mentioned what an eyesore this gas station is going to be, and I agree with all of that. I do have 2 questions regarding to some of your comments earlier, some of your questions. The first one is regarding the fire hydrants. If the city's fire hydrants are currently not meeting the requirements, the required pressures anywhere in the vicinity, I think it's going to be reckless and dangerous to the neighborhood surrounding the gas station to put another extension and another burden on that system. If a wildfire rolls through, as in Oregon have been more and more common over the past few years, who is going to be held responsible for failures of the fire hydrant or the fire hydrants to produce enough water? I have a feeling the city is going to wind up getting sued if they recklessly put more pressure on that system without first bringing it up to snuff so that it can actually handle the capacity required. So I'd like to know if there are any plans to make sure that that happens as we live back in Carlton Crest. So we would be impacted by that should it happen. Another question I have is regarding fuel spills. The guy who was here earlier had said that everything under the awning is graded so that any spills would be taken care of. What about the refueling connectors? I've seen situations where those have leaked, where somebody didn't set it up correctly and the connection broke and spilled fuel everywhere. If that connector is not under the awning, which they're usually not, where is that spill going to go? Is that going to be mitigated for, or is that going to dump a bunch of fuel into Hahn Creek? Other than that, I agree with pretty much everything everybody has said so far. For me and my household, it is a no. I hope you'll vote accordingly. Excuse me, I hope that you'll vote accordingly and remember that we're all watching. So whatever your motivations are, keep in mind, we will be keeping that in mind, how you vote tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is the extent of the list that we have for in-person requests for speaking. Is there anybody in our virtual attendance who is interested in making a statement? We're not seeing any at this time. So now's the point where I will give one final call for anybody who'd like to speak as a proponent for this application. Does anybody have a neutral comment? Just want to share how your day's been? Hearing none and seeing none, we will proceed to the next phase, which is where we will invite our applicant or applicant's representative to provide any additional testimony in rebuttal or as a contextualizer for the things that have been stated. I do have a hand risen. All right. Sir, if you'll hang on you're welcome to stay there. You're already getting warm, but if you'd like to come up, ma'am, if you could place your name and address as part of the record, and you'll be the last one for this evening.
Hi, my name is Tammy Dickens. My address is 530 East Main Street. I have lived in the community for 20 plus years. As a TIC advocate, the concerns of odor, contamination, and impact to property are valid. Fear, lack of support, and shame are also valid for many because of an extreme and pervasive problem that has gone on for decades. Research shows these factors, all of these factors, significantly impact child brain development, mental health, and family success rates. Thank you all for the due diligence you each have done to ensure that if this gas station goes in, the citizens have been given an opportunity to have a voice. I ask that you place as much effort to address the extreme and pervasive problem with rats that Carlton has that is equal to McMinnville. This problem is not because of our neighbors or the wineries. It is the old infrastructure in Carlton, and the damage impacts each of us in this small community that we've all been talking about and that we all want to keep. It impacts all of us in some way, whether you know it or not, because most people, nearly most people in this community have had it. This gas station is the least of Carlton's community worries. Well, I hope it doesn't go in because everything that everybody has said is true. I live on the corner of 5th and Main Street, and I've lived in that house for almost 20 years. I've seen all the traffic. I've seen when the police cars and the emergency vehicles go past my house at more than 25 miles an hour. And yes, I want them to if they're going to an accident to save somebody, because it could be someone from my family. Because I think about my children who are now in their 20s to 40s, and it could be one of them on that road. And I pray that none of those people in the emergency vehicles are going to get in an accident on one of those dangerous curves. Just like I don't want any of my children to be in an accident. As a reminder, please wash your hands when you're in Carlton. It's an infrastructure problem. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we will welcome the further testimony from our applicant.
I believe many of the comments that were made are very similar to the written testimony that I had reviewed. So I did try to address as many of those comments as I could that pertain to the approval criteria. A couple others that were raised that I might be able to address, and feel free to ask me any questions if I missed something. So the comprehensive plan is a guiding document that's implemented by the development code. So if it's not in the development code, it's not an approval criteria. I just want to make that clear. There were questions about whether or not a gas station is wanted or needed in the community. That's not an approval criteria for what you're reviewing tonight. Discuss the self-imposed hardship with my presentation, so I feel that that's covered. It is important to clarify that this proposed development does widen the road along the frontage. It's gonna now, because of the conditions of approval, need to widen it on both sides of the street. So the road will be widened in this area, and a new pedestrian bridge and sidewalks will be added as well. There was a geotechnical report that did assess soils, did look at seismic issues, and the findings were such that this development can safely be constructed at this location. There were a few comments about the donation of right-of-way. I wasn't sure if that meant that the developer was taking right-of-way away from the city, but there is donated right-of-way with this project to construct the improvements that would be along the frontage. So I just want to clarify that. And then the comment about the refueling connection and whether or not spills will be collected in that area. There is a sump that's provided at every refueling location to collect any spills that would happen in that area. So with that, I'm available to answer your questions if I missed anything. You need more clarification?
Thank you, sir. I think at this time, it'd be best to invite final comments from our staff, and then if any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant, I think we can address that after the fact. Mr. White, I would request that in the process of reciting what we need as commissioners before deliberation, that you remind the commissioners with respect to how we address these questions with respect to the criteria. If there is an order of operations, meaning if we need to address the conditional use first because the SDR and the flood development plan would be kind of mooted if the first one was not going to move forward, if you had any guidance there for our deliberations. For the community's benefits as well as the commission, the process of an appeal, if you could share with that, or perhaps our visiting attorney could. And then again, for the community's benefit, who pays for appeals of any planning commission determinations like the one we're being asked made tonight, just for the entire community's benefit and awareness.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just to uh, reiterate here, and I think that the chair mentioned tonight, I want to make sure that we're aware of the request to hold the record open for 7 days. That is significant to the extent that we have to honor it under state law. It makes it kind of difficult there to render a decision when the record is made left open. So what I'm first going to mention is that as we have received that request, it is possible for the Planning Commission tonight to one, acknowledge that and continue the hearing to a date certain. We suggest the date certain, as if we don't do that, then we have to send notice out, not only to 100 property owners in 100 feet, but all the people that have testified here. So it is a big deal if we don't specify a date certain on date and time on where the commission is to meet again. So that is part of the discussion I want to make sure that the commission has this evening, and it would allow 7 days for additional testimony. I am very concerned about anytime someone asks for a continuance. State law describes a time period. It's the 120-day clock. Is that not working? The applicant controls that clock. It's 120 days to the day that the application is deemed complete by the city. This meeting right now is day 54. That clock goes to the end of the appeal period. So what the chair mentioned, that there is an appeal after the planning commission decision. There's a 10-day appeal period. All those who provided oral or written testimony would receive a copy of that appeal. If there is no appeal of the Planning Commission's decision, be that what it may, the decision is final. So the Planning Commission can make the final decision, and if there's no appeal, of course, yeah, then that's it. But if there is an appeal, then we have to schedule a appeal hearing before the City Council. And with that, there's a 20-day notice period of appeal. So that factors all into that 120 days that we have to be mindful of. And one of the things I've been doing here is trying to figure out, okay, how can we assure that we render a decision all within the 120 days? And only the applicant can waive any period of that 120 days. So there is a lot of information to digest, and staff has been making notes here. Some certain things that the applicant has introduced, like the wall being one, that we can also fashion in some conditions. But what I will suggest tonight, as we do have this request for leaving the record open for 7 days, is the discussion here with the Planning Commission on what date would be. We'd have 7 days from tonight, and then we would have to package that, send that to the Planning Commission, and then hold a hearing. The date, the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting date, that is November 10, does not work out. We will exceed the 120 days. I would recommend that we do not schedule it. My microphone is going out. I would recommend scheduling it ahead of the November 10th meeting, and that way we can schedule, render a decision, and then the 10-day appeal period, and schedule a appeal hearing before City Council if an appeal is submitted. So I hate to kind of refocus on that. We can certainly, the Planning Commission can deliberate if it chooses, but I do want to go back to a date that would work for the Planning Commission.
I think that might be an appropriate order of operations, since we won't finish this evening anyways. Is there a day of the week that we would be anticipating trying to get everybody together?
I'm going to turn to Shannon and to Amy over there. One is a question of whether this chamber is available in certain dates that you.
Can you give them some guidance? I'll ask the attorney if you
Yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Well, we need 7 days, so yeah, it's
That'd be good to be fair.
20th.
Maybe ask one of these guys.
And that is the deputy chair.
Oh, okay.
The only conflict would be the city council meeting on November 4th.
Okay. How about, I'm gonna just ask here, the commission, I'm gonna shoot some dates out. So 10, if I could say, this is 7 days from now is Monday, October 20th, and that would be the date that we would get, actually probably, but the following date is when we would provide the planning commission with a package of what has been received in 7 days. I would suggest, given the amount of information that the planning commission has to digest that, I'm thinking October 27th, that would be a Monday, or October 28th as a Tuesday. What's the planning commission's thoughts on that?
Individually, I know I will not be available. So the question I would have for our attorney when we get back is if I'm present for the commencement of a hearing, but not for the continuation, what if any protocol needs to be addressed there? We'll still have 4 out of the 6, so we should have sufficient quorum and everybody will be showing up. Right. But
Is that entire week difficult, or?
For a few weeks, I will be out of the country, so I won't be in a position to participate. I return after our next regularly scheduled meeting. I waited exactly for the perfect time, right when our attorney steps out. Oh, she's coming back, so she might be able to share with us. There she is. If there's a commissioner that kind of looks like me, who is not physically present, but was here for the start of a hearing, but is not here for a continued hearing, is there any protocol that we need to adhere to? I cannot guarantee I will be in a place where I would not trust internet access.
Best candidate when you can be present.
And if I'm, yeah.
You have one commissioner that cannot participate in the deliberation because they've identified themselves as a conflict.
Yeah.
Try to find a date when you can participate.
I am departing on the 26th and return on the 11th of November, 12th of November, very late. And I think that cuts into your.
That's too, yeah.
So I guess an offer, a request that I know the applicant doesn't have to, but would the applicant be interested in waiving the 120 day?
The applicant at this time is not looking to waive it.
So I have to ask. So that's the pickle we're in. I just can't commit to, I'm going to be in a different and.
There is an option, I guess, the same week that the planning commission receives we would have the packet out probably by October 21st again. And we could do something within 2 days, October 20th, that'd be a Thursday, October 23rd is not a lot of time to digest the information but that is another option where you would be still there.
I can make myself available on the 23rd if that works for everybody else.
I cannot be here on the 23rd.
So is the thought process for my not being present a broader limitation or just a worry that we'd have an even number?
It's the even number.
Even number is the issue. Okay.
How about the 22nd? But that's a really fast turnaround.
I read a lot for a living, so I can make that part work if the rest of the team can.
What's the information that we're going to be given?
So, a good question. We have a request for the record to remain open so that it is not specified as to exactly what that information is. Reading over the Oregon Revised Statute, it doesn't require someone to specify exactly what it is. So we just don't know is the answer.
This would be limited to new and supplemental information.
It should be, yeah, exactly. It should not be a repeat of what has been said to the record already.
Commissioner Rhodes, would that work on your end
Thursday?
for the Wednesday, the 22nd? Commissioner Nordstrom? Mr. Chavez? Commissioner Hernandez Madrid? Looks like the 22nd is going to work. Thanks to everybody for the flexibility there. And I'm going to try my hardest to bring donuts as a thank you for the flexibility. So with that, we will continue this evening's hearing. Want to thank the entire community for sharing your perspectives. Naturally, these kind of things, this is why we're all here. This is why we do what we do and why we appreciate you all very much. So we will be continuing our hearing to October 22nd, starting at standard 6 p.m. time.
The 6 p.m. Okay, good. We'll check
6
on that
p.m.
here.
October 22nd, 2025. We will continue. That is our date certain. And at that time, we will have our deliberations. And I will not close the public hearing at this time, correct?
You can reopen it. Yeah. Did we
So,
close the hearing? Yeah. I don't.
On the record, I will close the hearing at
Yeah, there we go.
20:52, 8:52 p.m. And then we'll reopen it again when we're here next time.
I just want to clarify maybe for everybody else in the room. So on the 22nd, is there new oral testimony that's introduced by the applicant, members of the public?
I would have to defer to our legal team.
But yeah,
It would be closing on the 20th, so I would anticipate that would be a cessation. Correct?
yeah. Yeah, we should probably make that clear that for the record, it is a 7-day period closing at the end of when City Hall closes 4. I'm seeing 4. From this distance, I can see the fingers there. So 4 p.m. Monday, October 20th is the deadline for submitting additional testimony to the record. And staff will turn around really quickly on the 21st to give the Planning Commission a packet and the applicant as well, and produce that and put that on the website. And 6 p.m. the following day, October 22nd, is when we would have the meeting here. I'm just putting that down.
And at that meeting, it's just deliberation.
Affirmative. Yep.
All right.
Any community members that have any additional comments beyond the smattering or the wide variety that we heard today would be welcome to provide that to city staff by 4 p.m. on October 20th, 2025.
Yeah, that's important that it is deliberation. Unless there's something new that the applicant produces to the record, then the commission can reopen the hearing.
Understood. Yes, all of our meetings are public. There will be an opportunity to provide public comment on non-agenda items at that point, but there won't be a public comment session like there was this evening. Absolutely. Well, we want you to be here. It makes us feel like we're hanging with humans. Sir.
Deliberation talking about seemed to be pretty much unanimous for the public opinion. Why? And I wondered, where are you guys deliberating?
Well, it was introduced by our city team and our legal team, is that we are operating as a quasi-judicial body. And as a result, we have certain things that we have to conform with under state law, as well as under the city's code, with how we go through this process, how we consider the criteria, and especially in the instance where we were to deny a conditional use permit, to very, very specifically explain the criteria for that denial. And so today, I would treat today as a very thoughtful process, but as an etch-a-sketch being shaken. What will happen next time is us following all of the land use rules to make sure, to the best of our ability, that the decision that is taken by this body is defensible for those who might need to protect it or to follow up in the future, whether that is the applicant seeking an appeal or some other issue into the future. We need to follow the protocols, but we understand and appreciate the entire community's conference. Thank you, sir. Yes, go ahead. We've closed it. We can save that, I think. Maybe talk to him directly about that, have him supplement that. At this time, we are going to proceed to the most important part of the evening, which is the adios goodbye session. We require a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so moved.
So moved. Anybody have a second?
I second.
Racing for seconds. We'll give them all multiple seconds. All in favor, say adios. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation, everyone who came.